Thanks to Intertop Sportsbook, 22 years online. Sign up, deposit, and win. Team previews, we roll on. AFC North, here we go. The Brownies, 5.5. 4-2 last year, 4-12 last. Yeah, they wish. 4-12 the last 2 years. ATS 1-31 straight up the last 2 years. How the hell does Hugh Jackson have a job? Give me a break. 9-7 of the under. Last year, win total bet up from 4 to 4.5. They took money, and you know what happened? 0-16. So a lot of changes here. Let's start at the quarterback position. They shocked the world. They go with Mayfield, number 1. They also brought in Taylor. Kaiser's out, but every quarterback they take in the draft stinks. Quinn, Whedon, Couch, Manziel. The list goes on and on. And the guys they pass on, like Watson and Wentz, turn out to be studs.
When you look at the 0-16 from last year, I mean, the stats stand out like a sore thumb. Decent stats. Yards per play, decent. Yards per play on offense, decent. They threw the ball okay, except for in the red zone. Defensively, again, not great stats, but not the stats of an 0-16 team. There were a handful of stats that really stood out for Cleveland that made them a disaster last year. And the number one stood out above every other factor, turnover margin. They had 13 takeaways. That's not good. They had 42 giveaways. That's a freaking disaster. The minus 29 turnover margin is the worst in modern NFL history. And yeah, I had to go back and Google it. You know, it's the most turnovers in the season. 63 for the 1978 San Francisco 49ers. But there's no team that are among the all-time leaders in turnovers. The last one is on the list is 1983. You know, it's all these teams from the 50s and 60s in a very different era. So you had the turnover differential, which was at a historic rate. And, of course, that led to red zone failure. You know, they really struggled scoring touchdowns. And, of course, when you have turnovers in bunches and you have red zone failures, you have terrible quarterback ratings. The Browns QB play last year was at the very bottom of the NFL. They got 2 new QBs, Pauly. They got Baker Mayfield. They got Tyrod Taylor. Mayfield, number 1 overall pick. Taylor, the guy with the lowest turnover percentage in the NFL over the last year. So he doesn't take a lot of chances with the football. One of those two has to be decent, right?
No, we're talking about the Browns. I don't know how the hell you keep your job when you go 1-31 as well. I thought that guy was a bozo with the Raiders when he cost them a division because he kicked the extra point up 12 with 5 minutes left, and they lost by 1 against Detroit. He didn't even go for 2. He put it on 13 with 5 minutes left. They lost by 1. Mayfield could be good, but who knows? It's the Brownies, right? Add another one to the list. Kaiser was an unmitigated disaster now that he's out. But at least they have weapons. They acquire Landry with the trade. They also drafted Chubb. They went with Ward at number 4. Some people didn't like that pick. But certainly they have weapons there as they got away from the analytics as well and brought in Dorsey. But here we are at 5.5, and it's just like Jacksonville, where wise guys have been touting the over for 3, 4, 5 years in a row, and they're betting them. How do you bet on a team that's 4-12 ATS the last couple of years? There is zero value with the Browns.
I'll talk about it in just a minute, but let's start with some of the offseason moves. They did a bunch of juggling in the draft. They got Tyrod Taylor. They got rid of DeShone Kizer. You'll never play another down in a Browns uniform, and there will be no Browns fan that is sorry to see him go. They traded Danny Shelton away. This is a team that came into the offseason with the most salary cap space in the NFL, and they still have salary cap space. They're not playing for this year. They're essentially playing for down the road. But the team that Cleveland reminds me of, Pauly, is Jacksonville Jaguars from last year. There is not a unit on the squad. Offensive line, solid. Receiving core, solid. Running back core, solid. That defense is loaded, dude. All 3 units, the secondary, the pass rush, the line. From a personnel standpoint,
not even close to Jacksonville.
Listen, you get to say your piece. I'll get to say my piece. From a personnel standpoint, the team they remind me of the most is Jacksonville from last year. There are not obvious holes on that roster anywhere, with the exception of the questions at QB. And with Taylor, it's a veteran QB. It's a serviceable QB. It's someone who's got to be better than DeShone Kizer from last year. And that's why the Browns have taken wise guy money. The talent is there personnel-wise. And, of course, the schedule, not as bad as it's been in recent years.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Jacksonville because it is the same thing. Wise guys finally cashed a ticket on Jacksonville last year. They were betting them over 7 years in a row. Watch out for Jacksonville. Well, finally, it cashed a ticket as they went over. I do like the acquisition of Hyde, bringing him in. That could be a good move as well. So they bet him over last year, and we're betting him every week, and the year before that. So now they're up to 5.5 as well. But they made some good moves. I will give you that. They made some good moves. Now, what do you have on the schedule? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're always playing a tougher than average schedule because their division is tough, or has been tough in years past. Not this year. You know, Baltimore's lined at 8. Cincy's lined as a sub-500 team. So from a strength of schedule standpoint, the Browns, who've been the weakest team in the division by far all decade and beyond, from a strength of schedule standpoint, not as bad. The AFC North faces off against the AFC West and the NFC South, slightly tougher than average. The 2 extra games, they get the Jets at home and at Houston, and that Week 3 game against the Jets. Circle it. Thursday night, September 20th. The Cleveland Browns will be home favorites. They will be laying points. Even if they're 0-2, they start against Pittsburgh and New Orleans. Browns will be chalk Week 3. Circle that in your calendars. It's been a while for Cleveland.
Well, I hope they better get that win. They lose that game, they could be looking at 0-4, 0-5. Then you wonder if it might be a blessing in disguise because they finally whack Hugh Jackson at that point.
Like the show? Help us keep the lights on. Please make sure to comment, share, and subscribe to all the Sportsbook Review videos. Thanks so much. Best of luck. Enjoy the game.